facts from Fugazi. Finding waste in government, making it more efficient, double good. Double good. Use an outside guy? Okay. Bring an unorthodox approach in with him? Okay, depending on what he's doing and why. Transparency, transparency. Now, pretending that Mr. Musk doesn't work for the agency he clearly runs to avoid legal, even constitutional requirements, and running that in federal court like Trump did today, now you're getting swampy. Then you start playing with facts about key programs and cutting the poor instead of big companies. Now you get why there are people in the streets all over this country. To borrow a line from Judge Judy, and who doesn't, don't pee on key programs and tell us it's raining waste, fraud, and abuse. And that is exactly what Trump did, echoing Elon's erroneous data about Social Security. Why, when there is so much legit stuff to fix, why does Elon continue to make things up? Millions of elderly Americans are not fraudulently collecting Social Security. 150-year-olds listed on Social Security rolls, it's not a real thing. And yet,
people that live to 100 to 109, 4,734,000. Wow, that's a lot. People from 150 years old to 159 years old, 1,345,000. I asked Elon, who are these DOGE people? He said they're super brilliant computer people and they love the country. It's simple.
Simple, except they're wrong again and again and again. And an actual data expert at the Brookings Institute found that only 89,000 Americans who are 99 years or older receive Social Security. Last time I checked, that's nowhere near close to millions. The Social Security stunt is obvious. My concern is manipulation of arguably the most important federal program in the country, Medicaid. And what's happening there is subtle, but potentially far more consequential. Why? Medicaid is a top expense for America, no question. But again, I argue to you, the most important program in the federal government. Why? 1 in 5 people receive benefits. Over 80 million people. Mostly who? Poor, women, kids, elderly. For what? Health care. Since its inception in 1965, the numbers have grown because the need has grown, and the state's ability to handle that need has shrunk. Remember, it's a cost-sharing thing, right? It's supposed to be 20 for the Fed, 80 for the states when it was first sold. Now, most of the states need more than half or 2/3 of the money given by the Fed. So they need more and more money from the federal government to help. Okay? That's the deal with Medicaid. The idea that it's just the federal government doling it out. The states need it. And Trump knows this. And the president said he would protect it. But does his party have other ideas? Yes, argues Democratic member of Congress Jake Auchincloss right here last night. Listen.
DOGE is a magic trick. And the key to all magic tricks is misdirection. Keep the audience's eyes on one thing while you work your real will somewhere else. Elon Musk is talking nonsense and he's causing chaos and he's distracting Americans because what's actually coming down the pike is $1 trillion of Medicaid cuts that congressional Republicans are going to walk off the gangplank and vote for this month. And for the life of me, I don't understand why.
Well, look. Couple of points of pushback. One, it's not $1 trillion. What they're asking for is 800 or so billion. I'll get into it. And second, look, I don't think that just because one aspect of what Musk does or what DOGE does is offensive means that the entire effort is. Finding waste, fraud, and abuse is very saleable to the American people, and for good reason, okay? But again, where you do it and what you do and why matters. And again, Medicaid. There is no other need as universal as what this program provides. Look, these are the statistics. Check them for yourself. In the United States, guess how many people live in poverty or what we now call food insecurity? 1 in 10, 1 in 6 kids. This problem is purple, okay? Red states see the worst of it, in fact. Speaker Johnson, you know his home state, Louisiana, right? The child poverty rate is one of the highest in the country, 1 in 4. Nearly half of all residents in his state are enrolled in Medicaid. What's he going to tell them? Nearly half of his state's budget in 2023 was spent on health care services. What's he going to tell it? Nationally, Medicaid provides coverage to over 20% of us. Like I told you, 80+ million people. Nearly 4 in 10 kids. 8 in 10 kids who live in poverty need Medicaid to get what they need. Medicaid covers more than 4 in 10 births in this country. Now, right now, you should be saying, holy cow, what is wrong with us? How do we have this kind of need in this country? That's a really big conversation, and nobody wants to have it. That's why we have the culture wars. That's why we have all these distractions. This program is essential to so many, including those who we want to help the most and who have the least ability to do it themselves: the poor, the young, the elderly, the sick. 5 out of 8 nursing home residents are being paid for by Medicaid. Medicaid represents 1 of every $5 spent on health care and at hospitals. Why am I dumping all these stats in your head? Because what it does is overwhelming. Now, the GOP party line is what? Okay, yeah, the need is great, but there's a lot of waste. There is waste. Of course there's waste. But what do the studies show us? 5% of Medicaid payments are improper payments. Great, fix it, find it, great. But just know that that number is not unique to Medicaid. It's very similar to the private sector and findings in other government agencies. Here's my gripe. When you say waste, I hear you, I feel you. But when you say waste and you really mean creating work requirements for Medicaid, now that to me is a way of just saying that the poor are lazy. Now, why do I say that? 2 points. First, the data shows that it is not that poor people on Medicaid are simply lazy. Nearly 2 in 3 Medicaid recipients work part or full time. What about the other third, though? They're the moochers, right? No, remember who we're talking about. Many of the people are on Medicaid because they're compromised. A third aren't working because they're caretaking, or they have a disability, or they're attending school because they're kids. And only 8% aren't working due to inability to find work or retirement. 8%. So that's your waste? No. Work requirements sound reasonable. Everybody should work, right? Until you look at what happens when you put requirements in. Arkansas, nice red state, okay? They added work requirements in 2018 to Medicaid. The Congressional Budget Office found what? Neither employment nor the numbers of hours worked increased. But what did increase? The number of people who lost coverage. Why? The requirements disqualified them. And when red states decided to show fiscal austerity and refuse expansion of Medicaid during the ACA, guess what happened? The states suffered. And a couple of them had voters promote referenda items to expand benefits. So the GOP is arguing, look, we need $880 billion in savings. Okay, for what? I'll tell you in a second. But from what is my first concern. Why do you start with the poor? What happened to the Christian ethic in this country of who you're supposed to help most, the least among us? Did you know that the United States spends more on defense than it does on Medicaid after all I just told you about poverty and need in this country? Did you know that the U.S. spends double on defense? Defense spending times 2 is what Russia and China do combined. Russia plus China times 2 equals us. And yet the people who said the Pentagon would be on the table for cuts now want to take all those same cuts from Medicaid and increase defense spending by $100 billion. You got to be kidding me. Remember, they say they need $880 billion. They won't take it from defense. What do they need it for? To relieve the debt or the deficit? No. To pay for extending Trump's tax cuts, where the top 5% of income earners, like me, receive 45% of the benefits. Look, this is a political argument, okay? You are choosing the wealthy and corporate contractors over your poorest constituents. Are you okay with that? I know Republican members of Congress in those red states that are hurting and need Medicaid said they would not vote for this. How is it making anything great? It's more like the people who need the most are getting the least again. Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.